right. Hope you guys are having an excellent morning. All right, I wanted to gather together, rather than talking about Andrew Jackson and the Second Bank of the United States, it occurred to me that we should probably wrap up because we have an exam on Tuesday. And rather than going into new stuff, I thought I'd review some old stuff. And something that's a little bit peculiar about this exam in the second exam cycle is that I have very strong opinions about what's going on in the 19th century, and they're very, very different from the book. And so I wanted to just to kind of review some of this stuff because I went through it, I think, a little quickly. Uh, uh, Sophia asked me a bunch of questions, and I wanted to kind of review some of those questions and get us all on the same page. I want to give you some suggested questions, and I want to ask you to kind of think about how to rehearse the answers to that. Does that make sense? Is that okay with everybody if we do a review today? Okay, good. All right. Let me try out some. Okay, all right, excellent. All right, let me try out some questions and have us sort of noodle out what's involved in them. You can ask me questions, I can ask you questions. We'll just sort of think about how we would answer these questions. And it's going to be a little bit harder to make the case in the textbook because the textbook is actually pretty vague about the things that I've been talking about. So in a way, it's a little bit like shooting fish in a barrel. I feel like you've heard that expression where it's my case. I make my case a little bit more explicitly in the lectures, and the case that's made in the textbook is just they just say things, and there's no sort of justification for it. So let's start with the first question, and that would be the War of 1812. The book and I have some very different views of this. I apologize for the font and for the brightness of the screen here. I could probably change the design here very quickly. There we go. Much better. Okay. So, the War of 1812. What were the results? Oh, sorry. I probably very quickly jumped between one screen and another. Okay. Emily, are you on a tablet or a phone or what's your format? All right. So let's talk about the War of 1812. Uh, yeah, it is, and it's a free history class. This is the U.S. to 1877, and I'm Professor Scott Nelson, and this is the University of Georgia, and we've got a bunch of students in this class, and I'm just talking over our exam for next week. So apologies, it's going to be a little bit less interesting. Sure, nice to meet you too. Okay, so the first question. Yeah, welcome. We're going to talk about the War of 1812. What were the results of the War of 1812? This is the standard account of the War of 1812, according to our textbook, which is, for those of you who are watching, is American Horizons by Michael Schaller. What were the results of the War of 1812? And according to this book, which is, they love John Quincy Adams, man. They're going to defend him to the last. It was new confidence in the foreign policy of the United States with John Quincy Adams, who, quote, enhanced the international stature of the United States. Or was it a trade war with Britain? So, okay. So good morning. So what is so one of the things that you're going to be thinking about is what happens after the War of 1812. What does that mean? The enhance the international stature of the United States. What are some of the things that happen after the War of 1812 that are important for the U.S. internationally? Yeah. So my argument would be a trade war with Britain would be the most important result of the War of 1812, and I talk about that some. Yeah, right. The long distance credit lending that follows from that. So one of the things that you talk about is how, well, that's a little bit later. I would say that. So remember that the War of 1812 ends in 1815, um, and right. And so what you might talk about the panic, you almost certainly talk about the Panic of 1819. So you talk about a trade war with Britain, right? And so first, the U.S. imposes tariffs on Great Britain. Then Great Britain responds by imposing the Corn Laws, and then in 1819 that extends the Corn Laws to the Caribbean colonies. Sorry, 1818 it extends those Corn Laws to the Caribbean colonies, and those together basically produce the Panic of 1819. Yeah, right. Right. Yes, the Canadian perspective would be. I taught in Canada for a couple of years. The Canadian perspective would be the Canadians kicked Americans' asses in the War of 1812, and yeah, so Corn Laws, we burned Washington and destroyed Le Havre in Britain, but and Toronto. Yes, Toronto was burned, but we won. So we talk about Corn Laws. I think so. I think so. I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying is that the War of 1812 is basically so after the War of 1812, it ends in 1815. The war is technically over, but what we see is a kind of a Cold War, I think, between the United States and Great Britain, where each of them is trying to kind of one up the other. First, the United States imposes tariffs on Great Britain. Britain responds by the Corn Laws in 1815, and then the blocking of American trade to the Caribbean, and forcing any American trade with the Caribbean to go via Nova Scotia. Good, excellent, excellent. Right, and so Canada benefits immensely from this Cold War with Great Britain because all the grain that the U.S. produces, to the extent that it goes to the Caribbean, has to go first to Halifax in Nova Scotia, and then all the way back down to Barbados or Bermuda or those sorts of places. So what I would argue is that the War of 1812 leads to a growing conflict between the United States and Great Britain, and then a trade war, and then ultimately the Panic of 1819. So that would be my take on this. So it doesn't enhance the international stature of the United States. It arguably does worse for it. Yeah, it goes back to, let's see. So that would be Lecture 16, Deep Background to the War of 1812, Causes of the Panic of 1819. That's Lecture 16. And so if you go onto the YouTube channel or back to or look on the older lectures here, it's that one's what's called the Deep Background to the War of 1812. Okay. Other questions about that? Questions about how you'd answer that question, or things that aren't entirely clear about it? Okay. Should we move on to the next? I'm going to suggest 4 possible questions, and then we'll go through those. Okay. So I guess my take would be that it's a trade war with Britain, but you could. That's a good question, and I don't. I'll ask you to take a look at that. But they would say the Monroe Doctrine, right? They would talk about the Monroe Doctrine. They would talk about the U.S. having stronger relationship with Latin America and things like that. They talk about expansion and things like that. Oh yeah, that's a good question. The laws where Britain makes the U.S. ships go to Halifax first are the let's see, the free port. Called the Freeport Laws, and basically what they do is they make Halifax a free port, which means and when it makes it a free port, it says that no ships that leave. So Halifax is anything can be brought to Halifax free of duty, and then re-exported. But if it's re-exported from Halifax, it has to go in a British ship, and so that drastically increases the price. Those are the American Navigation Acts. And so the American Navigation Acts are part one of this. So the American Navigation Acts are, so there was the Navigation Acts in Britain going all the way back to the 1660s and 1670s, but the American Navigation Acts passed in 1815 are designed to block British woolen goods and other manufactured goods because the Americans said that the British were dumping goods in the United States. So the American Navigation Acts lead to the British Corn Laws and the extension of the British Corn Laws, and then these free port laws. And what this effectively does is separates the United States from Great Britain in terms of trade. Free port laws came after the Navigation Acts. So that's a great question. Give me a second here. Just look at my lecture again, because I don't remember precisely when I said it was. Okay. Yeah. So thanks for that question, Sam. Or Sammy. It's actually there are two laws called the Navigation Acts, and it's the American Navigation Acts of 1817 and 1818. So they're two different. They're both called the American Navigation Acts, but and that's why I was a little bit confused about the time. Yes, this will be posted. As soon as I finish today, I will post this on YouTube. I apologize for being slow in posting that. Okay, so those are the American Navigation Acts of 1817 and 1818. Britain responds with, finally, with the extension of the Corn Laws to the Caribbean and what were called Orders in Council. Sorry, we're getting kind of in the weeds here for folks, but this is a good, for the Orders in Council passed by Britain basically block the U.S. from getting this access. And another way of putting that is the Free Port Laws, which create the Free Port of Halifax. Okay, and that's the last stage in that trade war between the United States and Great Britain. And what that does is leads to the Panic of 1819. And we'll talk. There's another question that's more directly on the Panic of 1819. Yes, they are. Sorry about that. Yeah. So the Free Port Laws were passed as part of the Orders in Council. And the Orders in Council are an extension of the Corn Laws. The thing that's confusing is that the way that Britain enforces its laws is different from the way the United States does. The United States passes laws. Britain uses its sort of navigation facilities to establish these changes. And the people who make the changes in Great Britain are not actually Parliament, but they're, basically the Admiralty, the British Admiralty. So that's why it's a little confusing, yeah. Right? Exactly. So this is what if you think back to what's been going on between the U.S. and China in the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen a little bit of tit for tat there as well. The U.S. imposes sanctions here, that China imposes sanctions there, back and forth. Hopefully, that tension will go away. But if it doesn't, we could end up in a very similar situation where the U.S. is blocking lots of Chinese goods. Chinese are blocking lots of American goods, and that tit for tat could definitely hurt us over the long term. Yeah. Okay. So that is the War of 1812. That's a good question, I think. I'll ask you guys to pick which questions you think are useful. Those are results of the War of 1812. So, yeah. Thanks, Will. That's a great it's not just War of 1812, but results of War of 1812. Okay. Yeah. So next question: what are the causes of the Panic of 1819? And so we did do this in some detail. What caused this panic? Remember, this is a tremendous financial panic. Lots and lots of people lose lots of their land. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of acres go back to the United States government, the land office. Lots of people are bankrupt. Caterpillar banks, right? So what causes the panic of 1819? Was it, quote, speculation in cotton and land, a shortage of gold and silver to back up U.S. currency, and the recovery of the British economy, or a bubble in the price of land? And as Soph is saying, the land bubble. So if you're going to talk about the land bubble, you'd want to talk about basically the Caterpillar banks offering credit. What will we talk about next in that? We talk about Caterpillar banks that are offering credit to lots and lots of people. We talk about, again, oh yeah, I'm sorry. So I'm just quoting it and reading it here. Speculation in cotton and land, a shortage of gold and silver to back up U.S. currency, and the recovery of the British economy. Those are the three things that the book says are the causes of the Panic of 1819. And so bubble in the price of land is actually speculation in just land. So in a way, I'm kind of agreeing with them in that regard. And so you could say, well, it wasn't so much speculation in cotton, but perhaps speculation in land. Okay, so the land bubble. We talk about the Caterpillar banks, which are offering this land. We talk about the way that the which are offering loans to farmers and to stores. We talk about the British trade war again with the United States. The corn laws that are extended to the British Caribbean. So in fact, this overlaps a lot with the previous question. The corn laws that are extended to the British Caribbean. But then we talk about how this causes flour prices to drop 50%. Right? That's and I looked that over just to make sure. So I can say with absolute that the price of flour drops 50% between 1818 and 1820. So, price of flour is $10 a barrel in 1818. It's $5 a barrel in 1820. Okay, why is that? Because Britain is blocking American flour barrels from being transported to the British Caribbean. Okay, that's the big reason. It's doing that by the Orders in Council. It's doing that by these Freeport laws. And it's basically almost impossible for American grain to get to the British Caribbean unless it goes through Canada first. And as a result, British wheat prices drop, or flour prices drop 50%. How does that, though, get us to a land bubble and a financial crisis? The price of flour has dropped 50%. Why does that lead to a popping of the land bubble? There's a couple of intervening steps. Yeah, the British blocked the flour trade, exactly, with the Orders in Council, the Freeport laws. Right, farmers can't pay off their land. Farmers have credit, they're paying it off with flour barrels, and the flour barrels are worth 50% less. Too much credit, no way to pay it back off, right? Can't make enough money to pay off their land. So the USA, the second bank of the United States, takes the land back. Excellent. Okay? So that would be my take. That's why it's a land bubble, is because land prices are going up because of credit. Lots of people are getting credit for this land from the Bank of the United States and from the Caterpillar banks. They're paying it off with flour barrels. When the flour prices drop 50%, then you can't pay them off. And when we think about flour, we're thinking about Kentucky, we're thinking about Missouri, we're thinking about Ohio. Those three states in particular are producing tons and tons of flour for the Caribbean. And that market just goes away in a very short time, right around 1819. Okay? And so that's a land bubble, and it causes land prices to drop. Great question. That is also lecture 16. Deep background of War of 1812, causes of the Panic of 1819. Missouri, Ohio, and Kentucky are huge exporters of flour in this period. So that's a funny thing, right? We think of slave. Missouri and Kentucky are both slave states, right? Both states in which slavery exists, and a lot of that wheat is and flour is being produced on slave plantations, and they are damaged by this blockade, not blockade, but this tariff that's imposed by Great Britain. Right. So now all we get from Kentucky is fried chicken, but back then you got bread. And I call it a land bubble because remember, land is a land bubble, or any kind of bubble is when the price is bid up high. The price goes higher and higher because flour prices go higher and higher, and then suddenly the price of land drops. So, yeah, you could also talk about the Napoleonic Wars and the end of the Napoleonic Wars. So let me just for data here: 50% drop in the price of flour, and then a 40% drop in the price of land. And that is when the bubble bursts, the land bubble bursts. Land prices go down 40%. And so that's what happens is the land is worth less because the flour is worth less, because you're using the land to produce the flour, and the flour is no longer in demand because of this trade war. But as Zarian says, another thing that's important here, and that's fair to say, is that the Napoleonic Wars have ended, and the Napoleonic Wars were a big reason why the U.S. is exporting flour to, say, Spain and Italy and places like that. And that goes away after Napoleon ends up in, the Napoleonic Wars are over, and Napoleon is defeated. Okay. All right. Third question, possible question. Origins of the second party system. What brought about the second party system? Now, what is the second party system? Remind us who's in the second party system. What are the two parties in, say, the Jackson years? Yeah. That's Van Buren. But what are the two parties in the second party system? Nope. Nope, that's the first party system. Is the Federalists and Democratic Republicans. Whigs. Excellent. So it's the second party system. Stroke man. I think William Crawford would object to being called Stroke man, having gotten a stroke. Yeah. Okay, Whigs and Democrats. Basically, yeah, they call themselves the National Republican Party. But basically it's Whigs and people who call themselves, at the time they call themselves Democratic Republicans, but we can call them Democrats, and so it's basically Whigs and Democrats. All right, so that's the second party system. The era of good feelings is over from 1815 to 1825, something like that. And we have two parties again, and the two parties are the Democrats and the Whigs. We're not going to have Democrats and Republicans until the Civil War, and it's going to cause the Civil War. So, but the second party system is Democrats and Whigs. Okay, so what brought it? Was it that, quote, Jackson benefited from tensions in society caused by the market revolution? That's the argument on 347. That's an argument that I am incredibly skeptical of, as you remember. Yes, this lecture is going to be posted. Yeah. So excited you're getting the vaccine. That is awesome. I got my second vaccine yesterday. Or the MVB, Martin Van Buren, notorious MVB. Thanks. You too. Created a coalition of anti-bank farmers and anti-tariff slaveholders. Will do. Anti-bank farmers and anti-tariff slaveholders against the president and his cabinet. Okay. So what, if you were going to talk about what MVB is up to, Martin Van Buren, so it's the other way around. It's Van Buren supported Jackson. Andrew Jackson. Oh, sorry. Yep. Martin Van Buren, that's his name. Right. So basically, what I argue is that, and this was in the last lecture, is that Martin Van Buren sees the danger. What's the danger that he sees? What's the danger that Martin Van Buren is scared of? He's scared of a two-party system that is premised on what's his fear? Slavery, right? So he wants a two-party system based on the bank, based on strong central government, based on internal improvements. But what he fears is a two-party system based on slavery, because that will be a sectional party two-party system, and a sectional two-party system, he is pretty sure, will lead to civil war. Okay, so the origin of the second party system is Martin Van Buren, who then gets anti-bank farmers and anti-tariff slaveholders together, and they oppose the bank, they oppose internal improvements, and they attack John Quincy Adams. It's basically, and so we talk about the negative reference group. Talking trash about John Quincy Adams, talking trash about Henry Clay. That's what the party system is based on. And so that's, what else will we talk about? We talk about this, the corrupt bargain, right, of 1824. That's what Martin Van Buren, that's the second party system, is the corrupt bargain. A secret deal between John Quincy Adams and Henry Clay to steal the presidency from Andrew Jackson, right? That is the basis of this new party. John Quincy Adams is involved in a corrupt bargain with Henry Clay. That's the story, anyways. We don't know for sure if it's true, but that's the story that Martin Van Buren tells, is that there is a corrupt bargain between Henry Clay, who controls the House of Representatives, and John Quincy Adams, who is the candidate for president. And basically, remember, it's Henry Clay that swings the election in the 1824 election to John Quincy Adams and wins the presidency. And so Martin Van Buren says, all right, we need to build a new party, and this party is going to be based on attacking those two. Yeah, they're trying to steal it from Jackson, because Jackson, so if we look back, and this is an older lecture, let me pull up the, I wonder if this will work. Let me close this, save this. And I'm going to pull this up. And I'm glad you're asking this question, because it's not very well explained, that election of 1824 in the book. Sorry for my clicking keyboard here. 2021. Okay, bear with me for a second. I'll pull this up. And copy this. Okay, here we are. So this is the vote in the 1824 election. We had this in the previous lecture. But that's the vote. And you'll see who wins the popular vote. Andrew Jackson. Yeah, that's right. Henry Clay ran 3 times and never won. Yes, exactly. The second party, the corrupt bargain is something that led to the second party system. And Martin Van Buren is the person, arguably, who presses this corrupt bargain most strongly. This is 1824. The 1824 election, Jackson won the popular vote, just barely, by 43%. He won the electoral vote, but with 99 votes, But because he didn't win more than half, it goes to the House of Representatives. And at the House of Representatives, again, this is the 1824 election, John Quincy Adams and Henry Clay make a deal, and John Quincy Adams becomes president, and Henry Clay becomes Secretary of State. That's the story, anyways. We don't know for sure if there's a corrupt bargain, but the story of the corrupt bargain of 1824 is what makes the party system after that emerge, or helps make that system emerge. As Martin Van Buren says, we want an issue that's not about slavery. So we're going to argue this corrupt bargain thing, and we're going to push hard for everything that John Quincy Adams and Henry Clay support, we're going to oppose. So John Quincy Adams and Henry Clay support a strong central government, we're going to oppose that. John Quincy Adams and Henry Clay support internal improvements, we're going to oppose that. So we're going to build a party system based on smacking down John Quincy Adams and Henry Clay. It's in a way the mirror image, or the kind of anti-image of John Quincy Adams, becomes the second party system. Does that make sense? Yes, exactly. Building a party system based on hatred for Clay and Adams to get away from slavery. So it's an anti-fan club, exactly. So they become the Democrats. That Jackson becomes the Democrats, and they don't call themselves Whigs yet. But by 1830, the party of John Quincy Adams and the party of Henry Clay, they're going to call themselves Whigs later. It's a little bit later. It's after the 1828 election that they start calling themselves Whigs. No worries. So why did MBM? Oh, why did Martin Van Buren not focus on slavery? Because he thought it would lead to secession and civil war. Yeah, he does this just right, exactly. So they focus on something else, because he says, I have a quote from him. It basically says the old party differences are the best. Let's think about this one other way. I was just thinking about this today because I was looking at some of the sources. Yeah, position that Henry Clay had. Henry Clay says we want internal improvements and we want a strong central government. Okay? Henry Clay was chief counsel for the Second Bank of the United States. So that's another thing that operates in his favor, is that people blame the Second Bank of the United States for the downfall. Henry Clay was chief counsel for the Second Bank of the United States, and so they attack him. But they want to focus on something else. No, sorry. So Martin Van Buren is the power behind the throne in Andrew Jackson's presidency. He's the deal maker. He is the politician who puts together this new Democratic coalition. So the book's position is basically the market revolution, whatever that is. Basically, more markets or something like that. That makes people angry. People are angry at this, and then they join the Jackson coalition. It's an old argument. I think it makes absolutely no sense, but they're repeating this argument that Charles Sellards made when he was high on mushrooms in the 1970s and wrote a book called The Market Revolution. I don't want to tell Martin Van Buren, and I don't speak Dutch. Martin Van Buren was the first president at first and last, so far as we know, president whose first language was not English. Martin Van Buren is president after Andrew Jackson's 2 terms. He comes in as president after them. But yeah, Martin Van Buren is. So what's going to happen, I'll give you a preview of what's going to happen. This second party system is going to collapse by 1858. It's going to fully collapse in the election of 1860, and it's going to cause civil war. So Martin Van Buren is probably right in retrospect that a party system that becomes very sectional is going to lead to civil war. Yeah. So Washington, then John Adams, followed by Jefferson, number 3, Madison, Monroe, John Quincy Adams, and Jackson, Old Hickory. Did you guys learn that song? Sorry, I started at the wrong key there. So it's I don't know. I learned it in high school. So it's John Quincy Adams and then Jackson twice, and then Martin Van Buren. So one other thing to think about, and I was thinking about this, is that John Adams. Remember that John Quincy Adams is John Adams' son. right? John Quincy Adams is John Adams' son, and that the Revolution of 1800, when Thomas Jefferson comes to power, is based on an attack on John Adams, right? John Adams with his court packing plan, John Adams with his midnight um, uh, appointments, John Adams with his Alien Sedition Act, John Adams with his attempting to block settlers going to the West. And so everybody is arrayed against John Adams, and that becomes the Democratic Republican Party, and John Adams is the Federalist Party. So in a way, attacking John Quincy Adams is a very similar thing. John Quincy Adams is a kind of a, people remember John Adams, and so John Quincy Adams becomes the person that everybody hates. Hating John Adams is what makes the Democratic Party exist, the Democratic Republicans under Jefferson. Hating John Quincy Adams is what makes the Jacksonian Democratic Party work. Does that make sense? So it's the hatred of John Quincy Adams and attacking the president, that is John Quincy Adams, and his cabinet, in particular, Henry Clay. Yeah. Yeah, every party is based on hate. I hate to say it, but it's definitely true. You need to find somebody to deeply hate, right? Okay. This is in the last lecture, I think. Let me just verify that. Yeah, that's in the lecture 18, Vasey, Corrupt Bargains, and the Second Party System. So let me go back here for a second, just say that this Panic of 1819 causes, I said it was lecture 16, but it's also lecture 17. Lecture 17 also deals with the Bank of the United States and how this bubble bursts and stuff like that. So 16 and 17 are discussed in that. But this is the last lecture, the previous lecture when I talked about Martin Van Buren, the corrupt bargain, the party system that he creates. Does that make sense? Okay. And again, you are happy to disagree with me and take the side of the book. The trouble is that the book is very, very brief on this stuff. The name of lecture 18 was Vasey, Corrupt Bargains, and Second Party System. It's up there on YouTube. Deadmark, Vasey, Corrupt Bargains, and the Second Party System. Okay? Possible fourth question. Effect of the 1819 panic. What were the effects of the 1819 panic? Had it, quote, temporarily slowed down the tide of settlers? That's the book's argument. Basically, there's almost no effect of the Panic of 1819 here. And, or is it my argument, and again, my argument is that it shifted the U.S. from flour to cotton exports, which then increasingly relied on foreign credit. And so that's back to lecture 17, Why the Bank of the United States Matters. The Second Bank of the United States Matters. Second Bank of the United States sets up this credit system that provides British credit for American cotton. Sure. I forgot what I said, though. The effect of the 1819 panic. I don't even remember what I said. Sorry. Did it shift the U.S. from flour to cotton exports, which increasingly relied on? It's right up here. Shift from the U.S. from flour to cotton exports, right? Which increasingly relied on foreign credit coming through the Bank of the United States, mostly. Okay, so what would we talk about if we were going to talk about this? If we're going to talk about a shift from flour to cotton, which increasingly relied on foreign credit. So what are some of the terms that we'd use? Yeah, so the seven houses. We talk about the seven houses. The seven houses are these seven merchant banking houses in Britain that provide credit to the Second Bank of the United States and other American banks, which then provide credit for the internal slave trade. It did, or it actually it moved slavery south, so that Virginia, Maryland, and even Missouri, enslaved people move from the south, from those states increasingly to the deep south, where cotton grows taller and better. Thanks for joining us. Sorry, I have much more, usually more images, and I'm lecturing, but today we're just doing a review. So thanks for joining us, though. Okay, so how would we talk about this? We talk about the seven houses. We talk about the internal slave trade. Let me just explain how the foreign credit worked. Yeah, yeah. So cotton needs 200 frost-free days. So it grows in Georgia, grows in South Carolina, grows a little bit in North Carolina, but it doesn't grow in Virginia. It mostly doesn't grow. There's a little bit of cotton that grows in Virginia, but the best place to grow cotton is where we are. Basically, Athens. Sorry, from Athens west. There, I'm giving you four possible questions, and I'm going to choose two. Does that make sense? Let me just go back to one of the questions that somebody asked. Oh, Sammy Snyder said, "Can you explain how the foreign credit worked?" And so, basically, the way this works is that people have money in banks. They get 4% from the banks. The banks then lend to the seven houses. The seven houses then lend to American banks, and the American banks provide credit to buy enslaved people and bring them to cotton regions in the South. We still don't have to answer one, right? Yes, and the phrase that was used was being sold down the river. I don't know if you've heard that expression, sold down the river. So and so was sold down the river, and that's literally what happens to enslaved people is that they are sold down the river to Georgia, South Georgia, and Mississippi and Louisiana. Oh, sorry. Um, the credit system, Emily? How the credit system works? Let me pull up the image to explain it better. Oh yeah, okay. Let me pull up. Sorry, I'm just talking it, and it's better if I show it. So, um, okay. So the way this works is borrowers have put their money, not borrowers, people with money put their money in deposit their money in banks, the rural joint stock banks and the Manchester and Liverpool banks. Those banks lend to the seven houses. The seven houses then lend to the Second Bank of the United States and what are called agency banks, which are banks that are similar to the Second Bank of the United States. And then those agencies, those banks, lend to basically enslavers who are going to move enslaved people down to the South. They're also lending to enslavers for slaves, and this is a little bit complicated, but basically the takeaway is that this supports and extends slavery throughout the South. But it's in a to the way it worked was an agency bank would be operating in New Orleans. A person who owned enslaved people would walk in and say, "I have 1,000 acres and 70 enslaved people. With this 1,000 acres and 70 enslaved people, I want to borrow um, uh, $3,000 to buy more enslaved people from Virginia and Maryland." The loan would go from that bank to that enslaver. He would use that money to buy enslaved people who would be transported down to New Orleans, to Louisiana, to Mississippi, to South Georgia. They would grow more cotton, and then he would pay off that loan within 6 months by growing more cotton. Yeah, I mean, The people in Lombard Street in Britain knew this. The Manchester and Liverpool banks knew this, but the depositors did not know this. The depositors had no idea. They were actually horrified when this whole system collapses in 1837. They don't realize that effectively what they're doing is funding an internal slave trade in the United States. And in turn, cotton production increases, exactly. Because basically these plantation owners are getting more and more credit from Great Britain now after 1819. Right? Exactly. So that's 1837, and we're going to get to that after class. Yeah, that's a good question. I would say chapters 9 and 10. If you look at the page numbers that I've cited here, all of these are from after page 295. So basically, chapters 9 and 10 are the best ones to look at to go over this stuff. Oh, 200 frost-free days is what you need to grow cotton. If you don't have 200 frost-free days, if you have 199 frost-free days, cotton will die. So it needs this dry, warm environment for 200 days for it to grow. And so that's why it's technically possible to grow it in Virginia, but if you get a couple days of frost, then it'll kill the cotton. Yeah, it also makes so what it does is a new credit system emerges after 1819 that funds plantations, but it makes those plantations unstable. It doesn't appear that way now, but over time we're going to discover it in 1837 that it leads to another financial crisis. So here's the thing that I'm puzzled by is they say that cotton is the thing that's speculated on in 1819, and I think that's just not true at all. Let me go back here for 1 second. What caused the panic of 1809? Speculation in cotton and land, and I think there's really no evidence of cotton speculation being involved in the panic of 1819. In a way, the panic of 1819 brings about cotton speculation and ends speculation on wheat and flour. Effective 1819 panic is lecture. Uh, 17. Let's see. I would say 17 and 18. Yeah, I talk about the boom and bust in cotton, and that's really just a question. It's not financial crisis, but it is. There's a riskiness to this because cotton prices are shooting up and down, and the reason they're shooting up and down is sort of beyond our what we talk about. The reason they're shooting up and down is because of British demand, because of British technologies, because of competition from other places and stuff like that. But basically, most other commodities are, going, go up and down a little bit in price. But cotton, as we saw the lecture 18, goes up 60% and then goes down 60% and then up 60% and then down 60% over the period from say 1815 to 1850. And that boom and bust cycle means that these people that are borrowing from the banks could end up in trouble, even though they're only getting a loan for say 6 months. If cotton prices drop 50% or 40%, they could end up not being able to pay off their debts. Okay. All right, so those are the 4 possible questions that I have. Some of these are a little more involved than others. Some of them are harder to explain. Some of them are more political. Some of them are more economic. Do people have favorites that they like? So I think the 4 of these are pretty good questions. Let me see if I can. Bear with me 1 second, and I'm going to set up a quiz in Twitch. If if I can figure out how to do this. I tried it before. All right, I'll mess it up if I do it, and then there'll be echo. So, okay, 3 and 2. So, 1819 two-party system, War of 1812, and Panic of 1819, Panic of 1819, 2 and 3. That's see, Panic of 1819 causes and origins of the second party system. I'd ask that you cite both, so do take a look at the text and see what it has to say. 2 and 3, definitely number 2. Second party system. Oh, okay. You like one a lot because there's a lot, but from both me and the book to talk about. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yes. 7 houses lend to the U.S. banks. Those banks lend to enslavers who move slave down to the South. That increased the internal slave trade, and the move to the South allowed proper conditions for the production of cotton, which is the increase in cotton. Excellent. Yeah. 1 and 2. 2 and 4. Yeah, if do mention the books, take a look at the books, see least comfortable with the last one. It sounds like the 1 and 2, 2 and 4. Okay, it sounds like the fourth one is the one that's the most troubling to people. Is that fair? Uh, no, as long as you're talking about actual events like 50% drop in cotton, you don't need to cite me for that. The Freeport laws, that sort of thing. That's fine. No, we're only answering one question, and you get 2 options. Rubric will be the same. Basically, an organized answer, organized into paragraphs, a couple of paragraphs or 3 paragraphs, an intro, conclusion, that sort of thing. Yeah, you can. I would ask that you just as a sort of do cite me. Just say Nelson. Nelson is fine. Just put it in brackets. You don't need to say the lecture name or the lecture number. Same number of words as last time. Okay. Be about a page. Yeah. Oh yeah. I can't do the Twitch quiz. It would take me too long to do it. I hadn't thought to do this. Yeah, just Schaller is fine. Yeah, that's fine too. Just the book. Okay, and I want to apologize for giving you all this material that's not in the book. I had assumed that some of it would be discussed. 1 and 2. Okay. All right. Let me just take a look here again at what I'm seeing. 2 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3. It looks like the 1, 2, and 3 are getting the most votes in general. Test is again open for 24 hours. It is every word counts. Yeah, you really want to be as concise as you possibly can. Yeah, just say Nelson in the book just to make it clear, because I think that yeah, just put Nelson in brackets. I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure what. No, there won't be a quiz. We're done today. Oh, all right. MK, send me an email if you wouldn't mind. Yes. Okay. How much over the word count? Let me bear with me here for a second while I pull up the syllabus. Um, I think there were. Let's see. How many words did I say? 300 words. So a 300 word response is fine. 400 is okay. Even that we didn't take off even if you went over to, 400. There were a couple that were like 500 and 600, and I think 600, if it's double, that's a problem. But in general, you want to be able to do it. The reason that I'm imposing a word limit, and it's not a hard limit, is to get you to be as concise as you possibly can, to say it in as few words and as simply as you possibly can. And so it's really a pressure for you to kind of edit it a little bit and make it as clear and convincing as you can. Uh, yeah, the same. Word count doesn't make up a page, right? Because it's more than a page. Well, the word count doesn't make up a page if you use Times Roman. Um, yeah, word choice. I think the word choice is often just it's confusing. So if someone marked you off for word choice, I would say it's not because of the words you chose. It's just because maybe the phrasing was not entirely clear. Okay. Um, Sorry, I don't. I don't. It is a pain to try to do this. So you want to try to shorten sentences and things like that. Okay. 400 words is okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, put in Nelson and Schaller just to be consistent. I didn't realize that a couple people got points taken off for not citing, so just put it in brackets, Nelson and Schaller. No, the test will be Tuesday. Um, I don't. I don't. That's a good question. Do you need page numbers? Um, if you can locate it, I actually have page numbers listed in the questions, so it shouldn't be too hard to find page numbers on the book itself. Yeah, I don't think you need the lecture numbers. It's just if you can just cite me, I think that's okay. Okay. Yeah, I just put Nelson and like where you got the information from, whether it was from me or the book, just in in brackets. Um, you don't have to continually do it, but if it's a statement of fact, and you can just put one Nelson for the whole paragraph or something like that. So I don't want to have it filled with lots of Nelsons and lots of Schallers. Okay. Uh, yeah, you could just say Nelson says this or something like that just at the beginning and then continue. You don't have to say Nelson says on every sentence. Yeah. Um, if Charlotte, if you didn't get points taken off for 500, then I wouldn't. I think there were a few that went over that were over 600, and those we did take off some points because it was more than double what we said. Yeah. Um, Right, so on the one hand that's quotation. So I don't want you to use a lot of quotations. But if you say, for example, oh, I don't know, that John Quincy Adams greatly increased the U.S.'s impact in Latin America, then I didn't talk about that. So just Schaller 319 or something like that very quickly. So not actually quotations, but citations, if that makes sense. Okay. Other questions? Thanks, everybody. I think I have a sense that what your feelings are, and that the number four is not the favorite, and one, two, or three are very strong. So I'll stick with that, I think. Thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend. Send me an emoji.